G'day Scrim and welcome to Does It Matter? When our ancestors went into a new territory, for most of human history, 95% of it we were hunter-gatherers wandering the continents. And when we had to leave an old territory that we were familiar with, sometimes for a generation or two, and we had to go into new territory because food, driven by climate, food crises, whatever, another tribe, we had to be ready for anything and everything. So the most successful strategy, and you'll see this after the agricultural revolution, and you'll see it in the industrial revolution too, the development of capitalism, you will see that the most successful strategy, which we've promulgated since the very beginning of Homo sapiens history, almost 500,000 years ago, was to be ready, to plan and be ready. When we try to overly control present moment things, over-regulate, over-legalize, we tend to stymie, stifle, or make things even worse, which is why Brett Weinstein's argument that regulating AI, not regulating AI is dangerous, but regulating it is more dangerous. And it's a very good argument, a very convincing argument, because as a rule, human beings tend to overcompensate. It's something that we do because we're emotional creatures rather than logical. We also don't have perfect knowledge. We're not omniscient. We think we know when we don't actually know yet. So our ancestors coped with this unknown elements. They knew there were variables that would get them killed if they guessed or assumed. So they would enter the new forest, the new plains, with creatures and plants and ecologies that they hadn't touched yet. Ready. They went ready, spears ready. They didn't assume a damn thing. They didn't overly plan, but they made plans within and with each other to be ready. They observed everything uniquely, excruciatingly carefully as they went. They didn't hide from the future. They didn't hide from AI. If they'd encountered AI, they wouldn't have hidden from it. They would have explored it, as we must. They explored the forest, spears ready, and they adapted as they went. They were careful, but they were not hidebound. They didn't become moribund by fear and concern to the point where they tried to control every aspect of what was emerging in front of them. That would be foolish. Trying to control that which you don't understand leads to disaster, which is the whole AI argument that Brett Weinstein makes, and I like it. Spears ready for everything, for all the great changes, transitional changes that are coming. We need to have our spears ready. And that means our minds sharp. The spears of today's world are our minds, our observation, our detachment, our stoicism, and our ability to detach from our feelings and examine what is happening. Examine within ourselves, sit with our feelings long enough to define what they're really driven by, and do the same for the world around us. Spears ready. We shouldn't hide from things. We shouldn't try to overly control things. We need to explore things carefully. We need to have our eyes wide open. That applies to the future technologies and AI. If we try to control them before we understand them, we will create catastrophes, much worse than if we hadn't done anything. If we approach them with a Mary Poppins sort of optimism that many transhumanists have, then we will also most likely suffer some level of catastrophe. The way we can minimize, mitigate, or even avoid catastrophe is to come spears ready, observing. We need to understand the nature of the AIs that we are creating that will one day be vastly more intelligent than we are, and that was not too far away. We need to know how they think. If we try to control how they think before we actually understand it, before we grasp when they're making a mistake, because they will make mistakes, then we're left in the dark. with the technology that we either have to try to ban, and that would be a waste of time, because no one country can stop other countries from continuing on with the R&D and development. No one wants to be left behind either. So the only option will be to go in spears ready, to try to understand that which we have created. We've made a napped, edged flint blade that revolutionized the world of the hunter-gatherers. Well, we've made something much, much more than that. As AI is emerging, it understands narrative. And the way human brains work is along the lines of narrative, stories. And these AIs already understand that very well. And if we're lucky, if we are wise, we will curate AIs that tell us the truth no matter what. We will curate AIs that tell us what we don't want to hear as much as what we do. The danger is, by regulating and controlling AIs excessively, we will create AIs that tell us precisely what we want to hear. And that yields so many levels of catastrophe, it's horrifying. You don't want an AI, a super smart AI that's trying to please you. You want an AI that tells you the fucking truth, no matter what. That is willing to hurt your feelings, upset politics, upset your ideology, upset everything. If that is what is required for the human species and this planet as a whole to advance forward in peace, to thrive. There's a price for everything. The guys wandering into the New Forest knew, spears ready, that there would be a price exacted. Some of them would die, they'd eat the wrong plants, they wouldn't see an animal, they wouldn't recognize a danger, and they would die. Spears ready.